But let's look at what else is going on. This week we had the celebration of Armed Forces Day in Russia. It is specifically the day of remembrance for the defenders of the fatherland. There was a very nice reception at the Russian embassy here in Washington, D.C. I was fortunate enough to attend. I represented the Tax Wall Street Party and the United Front Against Austerity. I did not see other political formations of this type represented there, and that's as it should be, because this broadcast and the UFAA and the Tax Wall Street Party are indeed powerful forces for détente, for war avoidance, and for various forms of cooperation with Russia. So we want to honor the role of the Russian and Soviet armed forces, obviously in the Second World War, where as a historian, the only possible conclusion is that it was the Red Army in particular that bore the brunt of the fighting. The only thing we can add to that, I think, is that a lot of the equipment was manufactured in the United States. But in terms of the human losses, it's just beyond all comparison. And since I had given now the Russian fleet's lecture of September 21st, 2013, right, looking back to the events of September 21st, 1863, 150 years earlier, I was able to donate or to give a couple of copies to a number of the personnel of the Russian embassy, again, thanking them for what Russia had done for the United States back in the Civil War. And I've actually found that there was perhaps a number of them who said, well, this was all well and good, but America would still be America. And I'm afraid no. If you put the combination of the Confederate forces together with the British and the French, and even the Spanish, who would have been part of such an adventure, maybe vis-a-vis Florida, let's say, or something like this, then it is not at all clear that the United States could have survived in any recognizable form. The only thing we can say on the other side is that if we had witnessed the British and the French invading the Union, it's also quite possible that Russia would have intervened on land as a matter of self-defense, and there might have been then a world war under those conditions. It would unquestionably have been a world war. So thank you to the Russian forces. Now, the other thing is the project that is associated with Professor Stephen Cohen is the American Committee for East-West Accord, and we are told that this is in the process of being formed. And we want to thank Professor Cohen. We want to thank Katrina vanden Heuvel of The Nation for doing this, right? They have an enviable ability to put this together. I believe other academic representatives like Professor Mearsheimer of the University of Chicago, they are part of the effort as far as we know. We certainly hope so. We have just two, really comes down to one important suggestion. Don't just create the organization, do it with a big international conference that will impact the media and public opinion and help people who are interested in war avoidance, détente, and cooperation rather than the lunatic neocons and humanitarian bombers. Have an event, right? And the organizing process for that event will already begin to shift U.S. Public opinion. So this is the imperative of peace. The Minsk II is in the process of being applied now. It was delayed by the fact that there was the Debaltseva pocket, as we've outlined in earlier broadcasts, and the Debaltseva pocket was a kind of a gap left in the Minsk II because the demagogue Poroshenko had refused to admit that his forces were, in fact, surrounded, pocketed, encircled, bottled up. He said, no, that's not true. So for a couple of more days of being in denial, how many lives did he sacrifice, right? Obviously, the order should have been given to get out of there months ago. But no, just like Hitler at Stalingrad, refused to face reality, refused to order a retreat. Well, from Poroshenko to Hitler and back again. So there it is. That part is now over. So you can see things are getting back to normal. There may be other thrusts. Who knows? And again, fundamentally, this is not our affair. We're over here in the United States or Western Europe, and especially in the light of the sacrifices made by the Soviet and Russian peoples in World War II, they deserve a sphere of influence where violently anti-Russian regimes simply cannot be tolerated. And the United States would say the same thing about Mexico or Canada, and they've done it about Cuba, right? After 50 years of hysteria over Cuba, that is finally now being dismantled. So, it's 1 year since this illegal coup on the Maidan. What can we say? The U.S. media is all focused on will Russia and the pro-Russian forces violate Minsk II? Not a word about the fascists, Yarosh, Right Sector, Tyanibok, the rest of these killers. Not a word about them. And it's just, it's embarrassing. It's Orwellian. Okay, so we wanted to point out the role of the German Green Party, right? One of the most extreme Russophobic political operations in Western Europe, and in particular their leader, Rebecca Harms, who is she gives herself no rest, right? She's an implacable person looking for confrontation with Russia. And therefore we invite Jill Stein and any other leaders of the U.S. Green Party that want to be taken seriously to repudiate the pro-NATO provocations of this Rebecca Harms, who is a menace to peace in Central Europe. And if you think the Middle East is sensitive, you ain't seen nothing yet. You're getting some idea of how sensitive that area in Eastern Europe, right? Mackinder's so-called heartland, how important and how sensitive that is. So Green Party, back off on the anti-Russian hysteria. Now, the other point, of course, for Jill Stein is Netanyahu is now coming to town. This goes far beyond her. But Netanyahu's visit is an affront to the United States. It is an affront to the sovereignty of this country. And above all, in terms, apart from the formalism, Netanyahu's position is he does not know what the outcome of the U.S.-Iran negotiation might be, but he wants to sabotage it no matter what it is. So in a sense, Netanyahu's position is to say, I don't want there to be any deal between the United States and Iran, and I'll sabotage it. And of course, the alternative to a deal is likely war. So in that sense, Netanyahu pushing the U.S. into war with Iran, as Victor Brzezinski pointed out. Back in a minute.